had a really, really amazing talk, and I just, there's nothing more inspiring than space, and our Indian space program is just such a journey that I was just listening to it mesmerized. In many ways, some of the thoughts that I will share with all of you have some resonance with the previous speaker, Mr. Unni Krishnan, and it's great to get that process going, that those thoughts are seated already in your minds. What is personal resilience? If you look at the second. What is resilience? And if you think about the pandemic that we have just been through in the year 2020, I think we would all agree that each one of us has gone through a period that we never imagined we would have to go through. And I think, I'm sure each one of us has had some story, some personal experience that made us realize how important it is to be able to look at adversity, to be able to look at it in the face and find that deep inner courage and keep going on. I think the idea of resilience is not new. And in many ways, as I said, the pandemic has taught us to bring it up to the surface. But what is it and why is it needed? And how does one learn to become more resilient inside? I would argue that this quality is perhaps one of the most important ones as one goes through life, especially in the area of technology, leadership, and my own personal journey as a woman in the space of technology across global organizations. To me, it's a very, very important topic. But before we jump into it, let me share a video with all of you.
The 1984 marathon in Los Angeles was the first time that moment of glory could be experienced by female athletes. Before the 1984 Games, the longest race available for women was the 1500 metres. Los Angeles Marathon was a huge step towards equality, and the crowd knew it. The noise that greeted the USA's Joan Benoit as she entered the stadium, becoming the first female marathon winner in history, was spine-tingling. But not everyone came bursting into the stadium riding a crest of adrenaline. Here, for instance, is how Gabriele Anderson Scheiss of Switzerland entered the Los Angeles Coliseum on August 5th, 1984. Just look at her go. Okay, perhaps Anderson Scheiss is not the best example of record-breaking speed, but the performance of this 39-year-old Swiss athlete is far more memorable than anything even the winner managed that day. The crowd in the stadium sensed that it was seeing something special. It stood to applaud her every uncertain step. Few performances have ever represented the spirit of competition, determination and grit as much as that lap by Gabriele Anderson Scheiss. And it made a mockery of the old idea that female athletes lack the heart and the willpower to take on the toughest long-distance challenge of all.
Every time I read that, see that story, my throat, I get a lump in my throat. And I seen that that video. Of course, sports is a huge inspirer in many ways, but this particular video, I've seen it so many times, and I think about the courage, the grit, the determination that it took the runner to to go through that final stage. And the question I ask myself is, why did she do this? Why? Because she was not going to win the race. But what made her keep going that last step, which every single step you saw in the video? And how did she develop that kind of resilience? And, you know, some things jump at me to say, you know, in her mind, this was more than about herself. This was more than a race. This was about women. It was about a point had to be made. It was about history. And something deep inside her that she was able to draw into, it was beyond physical. It was deeply emotional, even spiritual. that she had to get into to be able to move those last few steps that you saw in the video. And it's very inspiring to me. And the previous speaker also talked about the instance about his personal loss and what kept him going. And when I think about my career, and I go back to the last 2.5 decades, almost 3 decades of my journey in R&D, then in business, I go back to many instances when it felt like I was at the end of my rope. I had nothing left. And there's something that I had to go deep inside me to keep going on. And I'll share with you a couple of those stories, maybe not as important or as eventful as an Olympic marathon, but to me, those were defining moments. And I want to take this moment to share them with you. I grew up as the daughter of an army officer. My father is the eldest among 9 brothers and sisters. Very modest family background. In fact, my father grew up in a small apartment in Calcutta, so I do have some connection with Calcutta. And he joined the army, I think, for his own sense of purpose and belonging. We grew up moving from place to place, studying in central schools, Kendriya Vidyalayas, as you know, very modest, upbringing in terms of what my family was able to provide for me. But I think what they provided to me and what I learned is deep sense of curiosity for science. And I loved mountains. I loved mountains. I would dream of mountains. And finally, I had the chance when I was in my ninth grade to travel to the Himalayas in the Himachal Pradesh and go hiking. In those days, there were no mobile phones. In fact, there was no landline at home either. So I was with a bunch of mountaineers. I was in my ninth grade, pretty much, a kid. Um, and we were traveling at about 14,000 feet, and it had snowed a lot the previous night. So some 14, 20 feet of snow was there. And we were up in the mountains, as I said, Rotang Pass is about 14,000 feet. And it was slushy. So there was a army ice cutter that was creating some road there as the path had been completely blocked by the snow. And they saw us youngsters hiking, and they said, why don't you come on over and we'll give you a short lift where this slush will end, and then you can hike further. We said, great, a little bit help. And we climbed onto the big ice cutter with its, deafening sound of cutting the ice. Um, Before I knew it, and there was some banging on the door, and people said, "Look at your foot." My right foot had gotten caught into a lever of the ice cutter, and it was being dragged inside. I couldn't feel it because it was so cold and icy up there, but my foot was literally in front of me getting crushed. Of course, we banged on the door because the din was so much that they stopped it. And then I had the 4-hour journey where I was taken down to the valley where the river Beas is. The soldiers took me into a shed. And because when they took my shoe out, I didn't know if I had a foot left anymore. When they took my shoe out, it was basically a mangle of flesh and bones. And so there was so much blood loss that they had to stitch it up. No antibiotics, no anesthesia. It was just literally stitched up with needles. And then I took my journey from the Himachal Pradesh Himalayas to Delhi and to Ahmednagar, where we used to live. No phone, nothing. And in those moments, there was infection, etc. It took me 6 months to even start to walk properly. Even now, I have a slightly deformed foot. It's not pretty, but it works fine, and I'm able to do most of my things normally. The reason I bring up that example is when I look back and I think about what made me bear that, what made me just chant the Gayatri mantra while they were stitching up my foot in that little shed. I think that I've drawn a lot of courage from it. I've drawn a lot of energy, a lot of inspiration and grit in the moments later on in life when I have felt again completely fallen on my face and I don't have anything else to go on. And it happens again and again and again. As you take your life forward, as you as you move in your journey, you will find those times when you will face those challenges. Another example which I would put forth is, uh, I had the opportunity to do a PhD, and I joined one of the top R&D organizations. You might say, I'm very successful. I had a daughter by that time. I was very highly awarded, and had stock options. I was a successful career, but I decided to take a risk. You may say, why? I don't know. I wanted to try something else, and I went ahead and applied for business school, even though I had a established career in R&D, and one could say, you are settled, you should keep going, and what are you doing? Um, but it took a lot to even go through that whole application process, because I had a full-time job. I had a little daughter, 5 6 months old, who I was taking care of. So I would wake up at 3 a.m. to even prepare to apply. So I applied to some of the top places, and interestingly, I was rejected everywhere. Every single place I applied to, I was rejected. It may seem like, what's the big deal? But at that moment, at that time, I thought I was a successful professional. I was awarded. I was working in the top R&D place in the world, AT&T Bell Labs, and I had a PhD from one of the top all colleges. But I was rejected, and it really felt like a slap on my face. And I had to go deep inside me. I went for a 10-day Vipassana course. I thought, why did I want to do this? And what was I looking for? What was deep inside me? And came back and reapplied. I finally did go to Wharton. I did my MBA from there, etc. I think these two stories that I want to lay out for you is about the fact that life will throw curveballs at you. And resilience is like any other skill, a skill that can be learned. It can be learned, but it takes some things to learn it. And what does it take? And that's what I want to just share with you. In my mind, it takes some practice. It takes practice to know that there is that deep inside energy. There is something deep inside you spiritually that you can dip into to be able to take that next step when it feels like there is nothing to go on for. It also takes understanding of who you are deeply. And that takes practice to take some risks and understand what your strengths are, what you're made of. Secondly, it takes people. You need to surround yourself with people who care about you, who work to help you, who are there to support you. And you need to be able to be open with those people, to share your vulnerability. You share the fact that you are dealing with something so they can actually help you. And you need to help others. So it takes a people mindset that what you're doing for others to help them become more resilient. And finally, it takes purpose. When you have a sense for what you are getting up in the morning for, and it takes time to find that purpose. Mr. Kuni Krishnan talked about the fact that his deep sense of purpose of what he was doing for the country. And that sense of purpose, that sense of meaning really holds you together when it feels like you've got nothing left. 2.5 years ago, I joined Microsoft, and I'm the National Technology Officer for Microsoft. How did I land here? It's hard to say. Maybe deep inside me, I always had this sense of I want to do something for the country. I want to do something with technology, with innovation, with my background in strategy for the country. I had that aspiration. Maybe something clicked, and here I am at Microsoft. I'm working on things that really matter at the country level. And in the pandemic world, I really saw organizations go through this process of finding their resilience, and found what it will take for organizations, for society, for people to think about how will they respond to this crisis, because this is not the first crisis. This is one crisis, but there will be more. How will you navigate the current? How will you recover and plan the comeback? And how will you shape what you look like in the future? What is the new normal? who you are as you reimagine yourself. And in my role, I get to do that for people, for organizations, for the government, for society. And the platform that I have in the great scheme of things that I have landed is an amazing platform that allows me to dip back into my life experiences where I have felt that I have fallen on my face. And how do I rise and keep going? It helps me dip into that. And I would encourage each one of you to find your purpose, the people that you can draw upon, and the people that you contribute to. And the practice, the ability to put yourself in uncomfortable situations so you develop your own resilience and therefore are able to really fulfill your potential as you move forward. I'll share with you with one last video of what defines what I do at Microsoft and how it really makes me feel that deep sense of meaning as an organization, as society, as people working with the customers, partners, and the government. We help the country become more resilient. So I'll end with the short video and wish you all the very best as you grow in your own careers.